Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Super excited to be here today with Natalie Marcotullio, who is the head of growth at Navattic. We're going to get into how to build a better and more effective demo request flow, specifically for teams using HubSpot. Obviously, the sort of entry point to all the things that we want to happen in a growth or revenue role, and for a lot of businesses, starts with that first interaction, meeting a customer, booking a call, kicking off the sales process. So I'm really excited to have Natalie, you here with me today to get into this. And I have a ton of experience optimizing this flow, thinking about this process. As maybe for folks who don't know, what is your role at Navattic, and why are you so close to this problem?
Yeah, my role is head of growth at Navattic. So I'm so close for two reasons. One is a large part of my role is providing pipeline for the sales team. So website conversion, making sure people have a good, easy experience to book a demo is pretty important. Some of the lowest hanging fruit as far as getting that pipeline. But on the flip side, one of our big themes, missions here at Navattic is creating a better B2B buying experience. So I also just do a lot of work looking at B2B friendly websites that have really great buyer experiences, just thinking about how can you make that process a little smoother.
Yeah, I know you all have published research on this specific topic, and it's kind of mind-blowing how bad the status quo is when it comes to the experience around booking demos. You've run the report a couple of times.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest thing what's been the biggest surprise to you as you look across the status quo of demo request experiences?
I think the biggest surprise was how few used automation. It did get better last year to this year. Last year, it took an average of 2 days for companies to respond to us when booking a demo, which seems wild because, again, you can just do an automated email. I'm not saying that's the best touch point, but at least just to get something to the customer. We didn't even get that. So it did get better. The companies are improving as far as automation. But even I think we saw like 30% used some sort of automation within their follow-up cadence. And even again, just having something that's, if you don't want to put a demo scheduler on your website, just having some automated email saying, okay, you signed up, or we saw you were interested in a demo. If you want to book time right away, you can do it through the scheduler and maybe after they've been qualified in your CRM. But it just amazes me how manual a lot of these processes still are when if you're not responding for a few days, you could so easily lose that lead and they'll go to a competitor who responded faster.
Right. And I think it's so interesting because speed to lead is obviously something that's talked about a lot, certainly not a new concept by any means. What's the sort of objection that you hear from companies that aren't in a motion that is immediate and has a schedule on the page and all these things that are sort of easy wins or quick wins to improve speed to lead? What do you typically hear is the biggest objection?
Two things. I think one, their internal processes are all set up about manual routing. That seems to really be the big thing is they don't want anyone to just be able to book time with their sales team. They want to vet who books time with the sales team, which I totally understand, but you can do that in other more automated ways. Like we do our routing based off of company size. For us, anyone gets a demo, but you're going to go to a different rep. And then I think if they're just used to that manual routing process, they just haven't set up the systems and tools because routing is very complex. And we recently launched a PLG version and thinking about the routing for that has even been so much more complex. There's crazy Zapier action behind the scenes. So I think people have just gotten comfortable with the manual way and don't want to take the initiative to transfer it to more of that automated scheduling because it can be a pretty big project.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. What do you do when the only motion that you have to talk to sales is through your demo request flow on your website? And then what do you do when you have folks who are potentially coming from your product, if you have a PLG motion, but I guess potentially also there's partner motion. So when you start thinking about this problem and solving this problem, where's the starting point? If you're starting from, okay, we have a entirely manual process today. I submit a form on a website. Somebody reaches out to me in order to book time. Where do you go first?
I think you can stair step it. And that's honestly what I usually recommend because it also gets the team a little more comfortable with it. So first thing I say is if you're not comfortable with automating things on the website, how can you do it in the sales process? So for example, again, if you have no automation at all, if you can't book time right from the website, well, let's say we still do manual routing. But once we decide someone is a good fit, rather than sending an individual email, set up some sort of cadence that we have preset to put that good fit in the cadence. And that cadence has a link to your calendar. I think then step from there, you can figure out, okay, now how do I automate this routing? Then step from there is maybe, again, I put the calendar on the website. But as much as possible, just figuring out how can we make certain steps automated. And I think it really depends what that step is also for your business. Look at your own sales cycle if you have that level of tracking and see what stages have the longest time and then figure out, okay, how can I address automation in that particular stage?
Yeah, from the sort of sales qualification, sales process perspective, Are there specific processes or specific motion or specific types of business that you think this is easier for, and there's more gotchas or more potential roadblocks if you're another type of business?
I think if you have a really specific ICP and a smaller TAM, actually, I say that actually might make it easier. I was going to say, oh, if you are really complex, you might need to do more manual routing. But if you do have a very specific ICP and TAM, you might just be able to say, okay, here are our rules. Does it fit into it? Yes, no. Anyone yes goes to sales. Anyone no. We send an automated email, say, thank you for your interest, but maybe you wouldn't be a good fit. Yeah, I think the more complex rules around your ICP is. If you have a simple ICP, then it makes routing and everything very easy. If you have complex or sell to multiple different verticals and different reps are assigned different verticals or territories, that's when it gets a lot harder.
Okay, so what you're saying, if your ICP is everybody, this is going to be tricky.
Exactly.
You bring up an interesting point there, and I think not something that I've seen a ton of content or sort of ideas around. It's like, what happens in the case where you are saying no? Like, you have this qualification process, you're automating that out in this, the goal of getting faster time for the leads who are a good fit. What do you tell the people who are not?
So for us, again, we take demos with everyone. Now that we have a freemium product, one thing we might nudge them towards is say, okay, if you want to sign up free first, if that satisfies it, you don't have to go on a demo. Another thing we hear our customers say a lot is they might send them an interactive demo. If they have very strict qualification, they might, you think this solution might be too big for you, or might be too costly, but if you want to run through a demo on your own, here's an interactive demo.
Yeah, and I guess that's there's varying degrees of disqualification, right? It's like you're disqualified from talking to sales, you're disqualified from talking to enterprise sales, you're disqualified from buying our product altogether, and those are highly different paths, and you can act appropriately. So in the case where somebody is landing on a page which says demo on it, right? Like their goal is book a demo on this page. Should that be the first step? You just mentioned interactive demos. Is there an argument where that shouldn't be a thing, and you should be gating that book a demo scheduling step? And if it is, what does it actually look like? What does that flow look like from I'm on this page that says demo to I've actually booked my demo? In the best case scenario, the most optimized, I guess less, yes, optimized for the business, but I guess more importantly, good for the buyer, or effective in meeting the buyer where they already are.
Yeah, I think in an ideal sense, like the most buyer friendly, and this is what we say in our report, and this is beyond just the demo page, but one, you show pricing. So to the question before, like what if you have to disqualify people? I think showing pricing really helps with that too, because people then, if they see it's way outside the price range, they'll disqualify themselves. So two, if I can go to a book a demo page and already have an idea of pricing, obviously bonus points if you do have an interactive demo. So I have an idea of what your product does before signing up for that live one. Again, not wasting time with people who maybe just wanted to poke around your product or thought it was something different than it actually is. As far as the actual scheduling process, I would say we actually based ours off of, I think it was Gong who had done this before, and they used Clearbit and Chili Piper to create a pretty seamless process. And I think the least information you can ask them and the sooner they can get a demo is probably most ideal. So what we do is we just ask for name and email, and we do use Clearbit to enrich when we can. We do ask, how did you hear about us? That's pretty important for our marketing. And then if you have any other information you want to share with us. Then behind the scenes, Clearbit looks at the companies to see what the size is. So then we may automatically route them to different reps depending on size. You could also use Chili Piper to, I think, automatically route it to say, I keep saying manual before. I was going on all the bad things, and now it keeps popping to my head. But you can use it to automatically route to maybe send an email instead, or say a message of, this isn't a good fit. We use it just to route based off of rep. And then they get a schedule or a pop-up that lets them choose a time that works for them right then and there. I think that's pretty optimal if you can choose right away, because then also you can make sure it fits to your calendar, versus I think it is always a little frustrating when a rep reaches back out to you and says, hey, we have 2 available times in the next 2 weeks. Do they work for you?
Yeah, I think that's something that I think about a lot, especially as things that are trying to figure out and forecast the rep demo thing. It's like, how much time do you need available? What is how soon you can book a demo matters, right? Like, presumably if somebody's on this page clicking demo, there is a reasonably high percentage of those people, I have to imagine, want that demo quickly rather than a week from now or 2 weeks from now. Have you seen data, or do you have data on anything like that, on the impact of the experience on when that demo gets booked?
I don't when, but what I can say is part of the reason we looked into Chili Piper is because we were noted about like a 70% rate of someone who fills out a form, the book a demo form, to actually booking a demo, which to us, like, that just felt like clear optimization, right? If you start the form, you have a lot of intent why you're not finishing the process. And my guess there would be either the form had too many fields and was overwhelming, or there weren't enough like availability for you. So when we switched to Chili Piper, we now have about an 80 to 85% rate of people who go from filling out the form to actually booking a demo.
Well, that's a reasonable win.
Exactly. Yeah. 15% increase of leads just from changing how you book a demo. And I imagine a large part of that has to do with the fact that you can see availability same day.
I think especially depending on the type of business and where your customers are or where your prospects are coming from, there's got to be a wide range of conversion rates purely based on the availability which is shown in that form, right? If you're Europe versus the West Coast of the US, like the days don't line up particularly well. Even worse if it's Australia or something else. But yeah, no, that's a big jump to just by showing availability, so 10 to 15%.
And we also removed that field about employee size. So that was the clear bit part, so we don't know exactly if it was the showing immediate availability or if it was removing that field. But again, I think the overall hypothesis is like remove the fields, make it super simple, make sure that they can book time as fast as possible. Another thing we do is you actually book with an AE. And I know this is not possible for everyone, but you're not qualified by a BDR. It's pretty clear that you're booking an actual demo. And on our book a demo page, we make it clear that you will see the product on the first call. We will discuss pricing. It will be with an AE. I think that also really helps. It's funny, every now and then I have someone who might be in my network who goes and reaches out to me to book a demo over like LinkedIn. And I'm like, oh, you just clearly don't want to have to talk to a BDR, which we don't make you do anyway. And then I'm happy to talk to them, or that I might direct them to an AE if they're really high intent. But it's funny how as buyers, we so badly want to get around that BDR qualification call that we'll find like any other channel possible.
I certainly experienced a fair amount of that at Arrows. And I think ultimately people just want the problem solved. And often I think the smart software companies are realizing this and making moves in this direction. Like often that includes more than just software, right? And that once you get in the sales process, you're just going to be sold software. So if there are things that need to happen around that, whether that's solutions engineers for implementation, whether that's pretty deep in the HubSpot ecosystems, whether that's like figuring out like what is the thing that you implement on the HubSpot side to complement the software that you just bought, or whether it's just content around like how to approach this problem and solve it more effectively. A small sort of portion of that is actually solved by getting on and buy the software, no matter how great that experience is. Like that doesn't shock me. And I saw Pete Caputa post on LinkedIn around like really framing their demo page as you're going to be talking to experts in the problem, and whether you buy from us or not, you're going to get that sort of level of, is again nothing new, right? Like consultative selling is some pretty accepted principle, but it's interesting to see that is how do people get around it? Is there anything that you're doing so I guess they've requested the demo at this point, but is there anything that you're doing in that process, either pre-call, in the playbook for that call? You just mentioned a couple of things, like you'll see the product, you'll see pricing, to help improve that experience for the buyer.
Yeah. So again, in the calendar invite, we're going to link our interactive demo. We also try to share examples beforehand. So if we do have time, and this is a little more manual of a process because we do have a template that has like our demo showcase that just shows our top interactive demo examples. But if we do have time beforehand, we might share, okay, we see you in this industry. Here's an example of one of our top interactive demos in the same industry. So I think personalizing it, again, to your point of making it more consultative, that just shows like I am an expert. I understand your industry or your use case a little more. This call is not just going to be show you Navattic or qualify you. I'm also going to show you what others are doing in your space.
Yeah, and you said that's manual. Is that email that gets sent, that's sent by the AE, they personalize that with some context, and was that a sort of intentional decision to not automate that email? Because I think if you're in a flow that doesn't have scheduler on page, like you're definitely automating an email, or hopefully automating an email post demo request, which is not personalized, but this one, which you have more information potentially, or you have a meeting on the calendar, is personalized. Like, what's the sort of trade-off there, do you think?
I think the rule about when to automate versus manual is if by doing it manually, are you adding in additional helpful information specific to that account, to that prospect? So in this case, if we didn't have a calendar scheduler, the first email that would go out would probably be an automatic email encouraging them to book a demo. But at this point, they've already booked one. And it's not something that we can automate because every single prospect's a little different. They're all coming from different industries. Maybe if we were really advanced one day, I could have a field in HubSpot that says industry, and if this industry, send this email versus this email. But we also sometimes see that they used to work at a previous company, and maybe that company used Navattic. So we'll share that example. This is one of those examples where I do think the human touch goes a long way because there are multiple ways to personalize it. It's not just one standard out of the box.
It's also a higher risk automation, right? It's like you've booked this demo. You now have a calendar invite from somebody that has their name on it. Generally, that's the way that I think about it. I totally agree about the point. If it's a one-to-one email, it's going to be different for each person, then manual and personalized is going to work. But also thinking about that from name, right? If it's from a marketer's email, lots of people. But if it's sales and I'm booking one-to-one time on a calendar, and it's Ben who's going to email me, or Ben who's going to do the demo, an email coming from Ben probably wants to be proofed. Or at least something that Ben would actually send. That'd be specific. No, that totally makes sense. As you mentioned, there's some opportunities in here to use interactive demos throughout the process to share context that helps people get ahead of information gain before the actual call itself. Is there anything that you're doing during the call or after the call that, again, you mentioned the sort of, we'll show pricing, show the product, that sort of you would still put in the category of this is for improved demo buyer experience?
It's pretty similar, but again, if we don't get to showing those examples or sending them beforehand, a lot of times we show live demos on the call. So we'll respond back with those live examples. And then if we talked about any specific features, then we might also send an interactive demo of that specific feature. So then if that champion wants to go share with other members of their team, they might not need to go book another demo. They can just share that. So for example, if you're more of an IC and your manager only cares about the analytics in your platform, we would send just an analytics interactive demo that you could then go share with your manager. So anything, it's fun, again, that mix of, it's highly personal to that individual person, but by sending them those resources, it can make the entire process a little more automated and doesn't have to necessarily be like just a bunch of one-on-one demo calls.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out that there's an enablement aspect to this too, which is, okay, especially in B2B, you're not selling to one person, you're selling to an account, which has multiple stakeholders. How do you enable whoever it is who lands on that demo page to best advocate and enable and help move things along internally on their side when they're not in that live call? How does this fit in? And this is maybe a little off topic, but like, how does this fit in with like a digital sales room or the sort of, I guess, maybe traditional enablement type materials that, sending the deck, like that kind of stuff? Like, how do you think about that sort of ongoing enablement component?
It's funny because as I was talking about the interactive demos, saying them, I was thinking about digital sales rooms because I feel like those have become a lot more popular. And I think it makes a ton of sense. Like one place where you have all the information. We've actually been partnering with a few different digital sales rooms so you can embed demos into that digital sales room as well. So it's just one spot. It's like, okay, here are all my resources. I think anything to make buyers' lives easier is going to ultimately be helpful and consolidate information. We have so many channels now and so many places to have information where it's just like, okay, I know it's all in this one spot. I don't have to worry about looking at Slack and email and all these different things.
Yeah, I think the more opportunities to remove friction in the process and make it easier to share and access the information from wherever you are in the journey and whoever you are in the journey is always helpful. This was super interesting. You mentioned a couple of numbers that both on the sort of bad side of it, the things that are moving in the right direction, but still have some room for improvement. Some of the wins that you've seen by changing up different pieces of the demo request stack. Is there anything, what's the sort of one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is either earlier in this process or yet to start this process of optimizing the demo request flow? Is there something that like, here's the thing that you either need to take to your boss to be like, I need buy-in for this project, or just as this is the sort of type of improvement that you could see?
Honestly, I think the easiest place to start is by auditing your own process. I hear a lot of like PLG experts also talk about this with like audit your onboarding, audit your demo request, have someone who may be a friend at a different company, use a Gmail, maybe not a Gmail because you'll probably be disqualified, but just figure out a way to audit the entire process front end to back. And you're going to find like glaring holes of things that could probably be improved. And then just start there. I think what we have, like we've gotten to the end state and that's great. Also, we're our MarTech platform that's like whole thing is buyer friendly. Of course, we have to have a buyer friendly process for our messaging. That doesn't mean that's going to work for everyone. So I'd also say, see where you're seeing gaps, maybe see where buyers drop off or where there seems to be frustration points, but don't feel like you have to have everything. Even just small improvements in the buyer experience, just filling those small gaps overall will go a long way.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I love that call out to the iterative sort of process. And speaking of metrics, like obviously demo requests and the pipeline that you're generating from your demo flow is sort of the top level thing that ultimately leads to revenue. Do you have milestones along the way that you're tracking incremental conversion rates of this funnel?
Yeah, one we already talked about, that book a demo page to filling out the form and then to actually booking a demo is big. Another big one for me is MQL to operate. It's very easy to get lost as a marketer and, oh, how many MQLs are we getting each week? But ultimately, are they converting? Yes, no. And then I'm judged on pipeline. So pipeline's always the biggest thing to me, but obviously looking at those smaller metrics helps determine maybe where are we falling off if pipeline numbers are low.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll have all the steps for sort of implementing an optimized buyer-friendly flow as well. But yeah, thank you so much. Certainly, folks, check out Navattic if you're looking at more scalable, more shareable enablement when folks are not on a live call.